Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Rock, and I am honored to be the director of the Social Mission Alliance's Health Justice Fellowship and to really welcome you all to this incredible webinar that's celebrating the work of our Health Justice Fellows over the past year. The title of the webinar is Organizing and Advocating for Us All, Reflections from the Social Mission Alliance Health Justice Fellows. So these webinars used to be part of the Social Mission Alliance's Student Assembly, but the Student Assembly has now been transitioned into our learner engagement initiatives. They're a forum for health professional trainees and lifelong learners at all stages to engage in dialogue on issues impacting health professional education and the ability of our workforce to advance health equity in this country. We hope to continue using this forum to allow for greater inclusion of perspectives from the community, patients, educators, organizational leaders, and learners in realizing the change that unites the Alliance. We believe that this transition from student assembly to learner engagement will strengthen connections across the Social Mission Alliance necessary to realize the collective vision that brings us all together while still maintaining a home base for student activism. I'm particularly excited to welcome everyone to this webinar because I've had the honor of supporting and working alongside this year's cohort of Health Justice Fellows as they've worked on projects that breathe life into the Social Mission Alliance's For Us All campaign. The For Us All campaign is SMA's advocacy initiative fighting for transformative health justice through social accountability within health professions training institutions. The campaign seeks to inspire a reimagining of the social contract to see a world where there is equal health for us all. It is a vehicle to galvanize our vast community of committed health professionals from across the country and internationally who have connected with SMA over the past decade. The Health Justice Fellows and the projects they've led are the vanguard of the institutional organizing arm of the For Us All campaign. Their work aligns with the five pillars that we believe are key to realizing a healthcare workforce and health systems that realize health equity for us all. So tonight, four of our six fellows will have 10 minutes each to reflect on their projects, how the fellowship and the campaign supported them, and how others can get involved in work like this as a part of the Social Mission Alliance. So I'm really honored to introduce our first speaker, Miranda.
Hello, thank you so much. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Can you guys see that okay? Yes, great. Alrighty, I'll get started. So my name is Miranda Harris Martinez. I am a fourth-year medical student at the University of Minnesota, soon to be family medicine resident at the University of Pennsylvania, and I had the massive honor of being a health justice fellow this year. And as you can see, my project through the For Us All campaign was all about halting a corporate insurer-led course at my medical school. And so, yeah, this is the story about how I did that. So my medical school launched a course in collaboration with United Health Group. In case you don't know what that is, that's a massive health insurance corporation, and it's headquartered just 20 minutes from my campus. So in this class, medical students would go to the headquarters and learn about how United finances healthcare, how to be a United provider, and how to deliver care the United way. If you don't know, United Health is a company that is widely known for denying essential care. It consistently prioritizes profit over patients, and now they were being invited into our classrooms to shape how future doctors think. And worse, as you can see here on the slide, my faculty actually published about this course, praised it, and then disclosed that United Health had provided a large donation to run it. So I knew I had to do something about it. And so I went to my Social Mission Alliance community and this fellowship. And it was really through the fellowship that I had a scaffold of how do I address this issue that's happening at my school? And especially through the For Us All campaign, how do I hold my medical school socially accountable when there's this massive conflict of interest? So through the mentors and the co-fellows at the fellowship, they really helped me turn this frustration into a strategy, and we built a campaign. So first, we launched an op-ed and a petition at the same time, first to demand that the course be dismantled and then that a replacement course be made, one that had no corporate influence, that was just an objective, balanced course about health systems financing, because we actually don't have one at my institution. And right now, this is the only iteration of that was existing. Importantly, I partnered with Students for a National Health Program to do this. This is the student org that advocates for universal healthcare, and that's because I saw our missions aligned. It wasn't just about this one course, it was about the future of deprivatizing healthcare. And exciting enough, over 400 people signed this petition. And so our administration responded by calling a listening session. And this is where I was nervous all over again because I didn't know how administrators and faculty in this room, how are they going to like control the narrative and basically try to convince my student body that this course should exist. And so that's why I bring up this image here of the Relate Lab. This fellowship has an incredible partnership with the Relate Lab. The Relate Lab is really a group of healthcare workers and organizers that form a nexus of community organizing within a clinic in Portland, Oregon. And it is these folks who are experts in doing exactly this kind of work. And so they coached me on basically how to manage the room and the narrative, so to make sure that our demands wouldn't be diluted. And so that's what I did. I packed the room with over 100 people. I had one by one students stand up and say, hey, this course doesn't belong in our education. Um, some people even said that they feared that they'd graduate from United Health Group Medical School, and our faculty and administrators really just couldn't justify this course. They kind of faltered in their explanations, and as a result, the course was shut down, which was huge. It was a great win. But it doesn't end there because when the local media picked up this story, they really tried to frame it as a routine response to student feedback. And once again, through my coaches at the Social Mission Alliance, they said, "Hey, Miranda, you have to get in there and like start controlling this narrative." So I went on the record to say, "No, this, what we did, it was a collective action. It was a campaign." And also, it was really great being connected to other organizations through this. For example, with Physicians for a National Health Program, the parent organization of the Student for a National Health Program, or org, because they really gave us a space to help us claim the narrative and run our own story through all of their national channels as well. But we didn't stop there because you can't just stop there. And this fellowship has really helped me in understanding and negotiating power and how you have to kind of address power from all levels. So we actually worked with local legislators in Minnesota to introduce a bill that would prohibit any for-profit corporation from shaping medical school curriculum from now and into the future. And that bill has passed its Senate committee, and it'll likely pass an omnibus bill here in Minnesota. And it was really incredible because all of this started from the For Us All campaign and the Social Mission Alliance. They didn't just support me, they taught me how to build power and use it and how to win. To the point that, as you guys can see here, the folks at the Social Mission have really guided me and empowered me to share this story nationally and build networks from it. So I actually had the opportunity to host a webinar on this topic about resisting the corporatization of medicine. And I got to connect with national leaders in this movement who I now am in community with. And I'm going to carry this work forward with me into residency and beyond. So yeah, I'm just so grateful to SMA and the For Us All campaign and getting to do this project with them by my side and them coaching me through it because as a result, I realize that I have the power to hold my institution accountable, especially for the people that they are meant to serve. So that's all I got. Thanks so much. I'll hand it off to the next fellow.
Thank you, Miranda. Your PowerPoint was so amazing, and I loved hearing about your work again. You're so inspiring. Like, I love you, girl. Hi, everyone. My name is Queena Williams. I am one of the Health Justice Fellows, and I'm really blessed to be among my esteemed peers and also to have been given the opportunity by the Social Mission Alliance to be a Health Justice Fellow. I'm currently a second year physician assistant student at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And right now, my project that I'm working on is creating a PA pipeline for pre-PAs in the state of Maryland. So I'm currently working with the MDAPA, which is also known as the Maryland Academy for Physician Assistants, to develop a program for students, non-traditional and traditional, that are interested in entering into the PA field. So one of the reasons why I had developed this program was because of the need that I saw during my pre-PA time. Typically, it was hard to find mentorship and support during my PA journey. I did not know how to develop my application, my personal statement, or even know how to connect with people to get my hours. And my primary source for assistance was YouTube. And then essentially I was able to get some mentorship through LinkedIn, but it definitely took time and it did cause delay on my end. And being the Maryland State Chapter representative for my cohort at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, I initially devised a plan to do it at my university, but it didn't go through that way. So, in God's divine timing, I was able to connect with my Maryland State Chapter, and they have been very supportive of my plan to develop this. Currently, just working on the outline and also creating the calendar time frame for students, just knowing when they should turn in their application materials, how they should start it. I'm also partnering with the PAEA as well, which if you are a PA student, you know that they are the Physician Assistant Education Association. So they do a lot of our testing, such as the end of curriculum exam, as well as the end of rotation exam. And they also have a lot of resources for pre-PA students. And so or even PA students. And so I wanted to partner with them because they can provide a great level of resources for students to become prepared for PA school as well as navigating CASPA. And also with the Social Mission Alliance, I have been grateful to be connected with a lot of great people, especially at the USC campus, because they also have their own pre-PA pipeline, and they have been helping me to develop a task force, which I will get to very soon. And hopefully we'll just start like moving the wheels. But essentially, I want to be able to also increase the amount of underrepresented groups within the PA field. I'll say currently from my experience, there is about 3% of PAs that are African American and Black. And seeing that I've worked in more rural communities, and also I've worked in Prince George's County as well, and I've noticed the need and the importance of representation within the field and how it supports patients. I think it's important to have those providers that reflect the patient so that they're able to understand them more, increase patient compliance, and also make them feel comfortable in the room and give them confidence to ensure that their wellness is being taken care of and also advocate for themselves as well. So for my pre-PA pipeline program, I'm just hoping that once students are able to matriculate, there is also another PA pipeline program that's being created with the MDA PA that students can transition to so that they can get the support and the mentorship that they need to be successful once they get into PA school. So yeah, any questions, comments, or concerns from the audience? I love to see the clapping, but yes, that was my presentation. Probably a little too short and sweet, but I'm passing it on to the next fellow. Thank you for allowing me on this platform.
Great, Queena. Always great to hear from Miranda and Queenie. I'm a Queena. Sorry, kind of nervous. Um, oh. Hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Scott. I'm a member of the Kickapoo tribe of Oklahoma, the Bear Clan, and I was raised between the Oklahoma and the Kickapoo village in Nacimiento de Kickapoo in Coahuila, Mexico. I am a second year MPH student at Brown University, as well as a graduate student at the Geisel School of Medicine at Dartmouth College, studying implementation science and the online accelerator program. Um, Growing up, I was taught that leadership is not about titles, it's about responsibility to others. And that understanding comes from watching my community navigate systems that were never built for us, whether in healthcare, education, or policy. So when I think about health justice, I think of it as an abstract concept. I think about it as access and dignity and the ability for other communities to define health on our own terms. Health justice is not just healthcare access. It's about systems, history, and equity. For Indigenous communities, health outcomes are shaped by generations of policy and structural barriers. So this work requires us to move beyond outcomes and really understand the root cause behind them. Through the Social Mission Health Alliance Health Justice Fellowship, I've been part of the broader Force All campaign, and this fellowship supports trainees who are already working towards health equity and helps us grow as organizers and leaders within and beyond institutions. What stood out to me is that this work is not just about improving outcomes, it's about understanding the structural forces behind them and building the skills to change them. A major part of the experience was learning from Indigenous leaders who are actively reshaping health systems. One of my mentors, Donald Warren, emphasized how historical trauma continues to impact Indigenous health today. That shifted my perspective from individual behavior to structural causes. Another Indigenous expert in my area is Rodney Herring. I'm located in Rochester, New York, and he's located in Buffalo. So it was only an hour drive. So I really learned a lot from Rodney. And he introduced to me the two-row wampum as a framework for patient navigation. On top of my slide is an example of the two-row wampum belt. And it's where Indigenous and Western systems can exist side by side without one dominating the other. I've had the opportunity to meet many great Indigenous scholars that are working in healthcare, including Terry Cross and Abigail Echohawk, who pushed me to think about decolonizing equity work, not just as an inclusion, but as transformation, and not just as participation, but leadership. Matika Wilbur talked about digitizing space connected directly to my work in higher education. And from the research perspective of Melanie Nadeau and Damien Chase Begay, they showed me how Indigenous knowledge and implementation science can work together. Finally, voices like Echo Hawk and Jared Ivanich grounded the work in lived experiences, and they taught me about what it really means to walk in two worlds. All these perspectives and shaped how I approached my project. So, my project is titled Cultural Wellness and Resilience, a guide for Native health students. And this work directly comes from what I see in my role supporting Indigenous students. Many of these students are navigating academic systems that can feel isolating, while also carrying the responsibility of representing their communities. At the same time, the wellness strategies promoted in academic spaces often don't reflect Indigenous ways of knowing. So this guidebook that I'm creating is designed to meet students where they are. This matters because students are facing real isolation and pressure. These systems were not built for Indigenous communities. They were built as a barrier. Culture is a strength, and staying connected to identity is critical for long-term success and well-being. The guide includes Indigenous wellness strategies grounded in cultural practices, academic navigation support, stories from Native health professionals, and practical tools like mentorship and goal setting. It's not just informational, but it's meant to be used as a usable, supportive document. So this work has also expanded beyond my institution. Uh, Rob has been a great mentor, and he's introduced me to a lot of great people. He's connected me with partners in North Dakota, including the MHA Nation and the University of North Dakota. And he's included collaborators to my work like Cecilia Little Wolf and her broader efforts to build Indigenous curriculum at the University of North Dakota. And there's also been partnerships with systems like the Sanford Health System and organizations like the Society of American Indian Dentists, who I got to meet at the SMA conference in Los Angeles. And Dr. Korb was great, and she really emphasized the need for more Native Americans in dentistry. And I really loved speaking with her and spending the hour I had with her. So this fellowship helped me thinking about shifting programs to thinking about systems and emphasize organizing, relationship building, and understanding power. And it reinforced that this work is collective and it requires alignment across institutions, communities, and disciplines. At the end of the day, health justice is tied to sovereignty, culture, and survival. It's not just about access, it's about making sure care reflects who we are. And if there's one thing I'd like to leave you with, it's this: work requires all of us. No matter your role, you have a part in shaping systems that are more than just accountable, that are more than and more just accountable. And real change happens when we move from individual effort to collective effort. Kipichi, and thank you. And I'll pass it on to Vicky, I believe.
Yes. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Vicky, and I'm a BSN and MPH student at the University of Pennsylvania. So I'm a dual degree student, and I'm really excited to share my Health Justice Fellowship project, which focused on developing and implementing a new medical legal partnership, or MLP for short, site in North Philadelphia in collaboration with Community Legal Services, which is a public interest law firm, which is highly established in the area. And so some of you may be asking, what exactly is a medical legal partnership? So as I like to explain it, a medical legal partnership, or MLP for short, is a model of care that integrates legal services, legal team, lawyers, and paralegals directly into healthcare settings. So it recognizes that many of the issues affecting our patients' health, like unsafe housing conditions for one, lack of access to public benefits that they've either been denied or taken away, immigration concerns, or utility shutoffs, to name like very, very many of the cases, are not just like really medical problems that doctors, nurses, social work, or physician's assistants can solve, but need kind of like a legal domain or a legal professional to help out with. So, as an example that I've seen a lot in pediatric settings is children with asthma who repeatedly show up to the emergency room in hospitals that may be living in housing conditions with mold or poor ventilation, as a lot of apartments and houses in Philadelphia do because of the houses or apartments not being upgraded. And without like addressing the underlying concerns of the poor housing conditions, clinical care alone can only do so much to kind of like ease asthma symptoms, but can't fully resolve the issue if the housing issue, the mold, the poor ventilation persists. So MLPs work by embedding those legal professionals, such as lawyers and paralegals, into healthcare teams to allow providers to screen for social and structural needs and also refer patients for legal support. And so this model shifts healthcare from being reactive to being more proactive and address more of the root causes of the illness and not just the symptoms that patients are experiencing. So through this fellowship, I worked with CLS, who I previously interned last summer with, to support the establishment of a new MLP site in North Philadelphia, which is a part of the community that has very long experienced many of the structural inequities, ranging from housing instability and environmental exposures to barriers in accessing healthcare and public benefits. And so, me specifically, I help to operationalize the partnership. So, thinking through how referrals would work, how to build a sustainable pipeline between the clinical setting and legal services. And it took a lot of work, but with many different teams working together, including city council, the hospital site, community legal services, some community members that we had testaments for or testifying for, um, a lot of my social mission alliance mentors. It was very successful in the end. So we recently established it like a few weeks ago, and we hope to keep it sustained. So a lot of us know that sometimes implementing a new strategy, a new intervention can be easier than sustaining it. So we really hope that it's sustained. And I'll continue to work on this as well with CLS. And doing some reflecting, another one of the most meaningful parts of my experience was bringing what I learned in this project into my nursing career and academic setting as well. So during my pediatric clinical rotation, which I actually just finished today, I came from the hospital. I presented on MLPs to my nursing peers, so about 80 other students, and the professors and the clinical teams. My goal was to raise awareness, and a lot of students sometimes don't know what an MLP is. I didn't know what it was until a little over a year ago. So, to raise awareness and just really advocate for our patients if they have an issue with, let's say, not having enough food at home or having financial struggles that perhaps like a legal individual could help and address, then how to refer them to that, because my current clinical site does have an MLP site and partnership. And so, following my presentation a couple of months ago, over the course of about 6 weeks of our clinical, we implemented a referral pathway that our students could use, so my peers could use. And we generated, I think, from my understanding, 12 referrals to CLS. So, even though that number may be not as many over the 12 weeks, it is more than one. So we're really excited about that. And lastly, the Health Justice Fellowship and Social Mission Alliance campaign were so important in making this work possible. I think this community and fellowship really connected me to a lot of peers and mentors who are really committed to reimagining what healthcare can look like and who encouraged me to keep going every day. So that is my project. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it on to our next presenter, if you're here, Alisa.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Alisa. I am a first year dental student at USC. I think technically now I'm a second year. It's kind of like a gray area, whether the summer, your third trimester is D1 or D2, but I'm right in between D1, D2. And I'm excited to be here. I'm going to share my story. My project is called Healthcare Stories, and it's before joining SMA, I was part of the Structural Competency Working Group. And for those who don't know, that is a nonprofit creating curriculum around social determinants of health, particularly structural competency, the awareness of the social, political, and economic structures that impact health, and delivering that education to various institutions, from schools to residency programs, to even public health offices. And right before I joined SMA as a health justice fellow, we saw a huge reduction in funding in this education. And so Healthcare Stories is a direct response to all the cuts being made in diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Because I think when our systems of justice are attacked, my perspective is we need to, I guess, rebrand or share these same stories, but in a different way. It's also a response to just developing curriculum around social determinants of health. It's sometimes hard to find resources online, so Healthcare Stories kind of creates this resource library. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of Healthcare Stories, I wanted to share my story with you just to kind of show you the power of stories. And I'm working on my storytelling, so this is just kind of practice for me. So I was born in San Gabriel, California in 1995. I'm proudly 30 years old. And my dad is an immigrant from Hong Kong. His family was affected by, I guess, the Second World War, and the Japanese invasion of China. His father was a refugee, and my dad grew up in a house without running water. He immigrated to the US when he was 12, and he attended, he was put in like remedial classes in middle school because he didn't speak English, and there were no like English as a second language programs at that time. So he eventually went to City College and worked his way up to becoming an oral surgeon. And My mom, she is from the Midwest. She was born in Minnesota, and she is, I think, second generation in the US. Her family, her side of the family were from kind of, I think, just like Ashkenazi Jewish. So, like, there's a lot of different regions where we claim ancestry. Um, but she and my dad met at Northwestern, and she is an orthodontist. She's kind of one of my biggest inspirations in dentistry. She was one of the initial founders of Give Kids a Smile, which was at the time a small movement, grassroots movement of dentists doing community outreach in schools. And it was just great growing up seeing just both of my parents, how they cared for their communities, caring for patients on micro levels and macro levels of reform. And so you may think having specialists as parents, I might have led a privileged lifestyle. And while that is true, it's not the complete story. And so I was actually yesterday like listening to bell hooks and just thinking about how like complex our narratives are. And I think this is why it's so important to share stories. In my work in the structural competency working group, we have diagrams about health disparities. And one of my mentors in the work likes to remind us we all have health disparities and we all have social determinants of health. It's not that people with disparities have more social determinants of health than privileged individuals. So hopefully my story can illustrate this. Um, yeah, so my life was pretty privileged at first, growing up with two specialists as parents. But in 2004, when I was about 9 years old, my parents divorced. So I went from kind of having it all to my parents living paycheck to paycheck, some holidays not being able to receive gifts for the holidays, and sometimes even facing food insecurity. And one something that's really integral, like not just like my parents as mentors who brought me up in this like very health justice mindset, but um, also um, when I was 12 years old, my mom took an x-ray of my tooth and it was unerupted, but it had a huge cavity in it, a void. And I was just born that way. So I'm probably one of the few people who can claim they've received a cavity from a dentist. It was just kind of there. And since my parents were divorced, neither of them could really do anything about it because they couldn't agree on a treatment plan. So eventually, my tooth erupted and it crumbled in my mouth, and I lived with an untreated cavity for I don't even know how long, maybe 8 years, until I was able to get it extracted. And I currently have an implant because of this. And so just kind of, I wanted to share that just kind of as a reminder that even somebody with two of the leading specialists in dentistry, like can have an untreated dental cavity. And just kind of as like a baseline, so you can kind of understand where my passion for health justice comes from my parents, from my personal experience. Also, I identify as neurodivergent, and there are a trait in neurodiversity, especially in women, is a strong sense of justice. So I definitely grew up in health justice, experienced health disparities firsthand. And then after, oh wait, I guess I didn't put this in the right order. But I just wanted to say, like, it's such a privilege to have like my parents as mentors in healthcare, and I'm really excited to be following in their footsteps. And even though like um, where was I going to go? Sorry, I kind of got disoriented from the slides. But even though like I took a lot from my upbringing and growing up, I think my journey in healthcare has really been my own. My journey to healthcare stories is not like linear A to B. There are a lot of people, mentors who've played big roles, even mentors who haven't been directly involved in my health justice work. They've really shaped the path. And like I like to think of mentorship as not like a individual connection between two people, but a mycelium network of like one person can pass you on to another person. So let me just like kind of explain that side of the story. I went to UC Santa Cruz and I double majored in human biology and anthropology. I was one of those people who was like really into true crime. And so I wanted to go into forensic anthropology. And a research project kind of just came to me As part of my graduation requirements, I got the opportunity to sequence the remains of undocumented migrants who unfortunately passed away crossing the US-Mexico border. And that was really impactful research to be a part of, to really understand the dangers that migrants face. And at the time, I was dating someone who lived in Berkeley, so I was going back and forth between Santa Cruz, Berkeley, Santa Cruz, Berkeley. And I just decided, like, I'm gonna look up Seth Holmes and who did his PhD crossing the US-Mexico border himself, and is a researcher in migrant health. And so I decided to schedule office hours with him because I was in Berkeley anyways. And that's how I got involved in the structural competency working group. And that, like, even though I meet with like Seth once a year at most, and he'll recommend 5 articles, like this mentorship has like really like helped me expand the mycelium network. So hopefully if any of you decide to sign up to be health justice mentors for healthcare stories, just note that you don't have to follow up with your mentee every single month, every single, like, it could just be a spark. It could just be their first starting point in their networking journey. And so that's what that was for me. I was very bold. I decided I'm just going to go. I was applying to dental school at the time, and I went to the Go Dental Recruitment Fair. And concurrently, they rent out the same space for the recruitment fair for pre-dental students and also the IDEA fair for dental educators. So I decided I was going to go to that conference and I wanted to mobilize pre-dental students to fight for health justice. I made business cards. I wanted everyone to join the structural competency working group, get involved in health education. And I handed out these business cards, and nobody really followed up with me except one professor, Dr. Fleming, and she was part of the Social Mission Alliance. And so that got me towards SMA. Another conference that I've been a part of is the National Collaborative for Education to Address the Social Determinants of Health, and Dr. Isabel Chen kind of also pointed me in the direction of the Social Mission Alliance. So that's like my story of how I got here and how I got to uh, be working with such amazing organizations like the Student Doctor Network, SMA, Relate Lab to create this platform called Healthcare Stories. We've done 3 workshops so far. The first is Discover Your Why, learning our personality strengths to write a really great personal statement. Workshop 2 was a masterclass with Dr. Chuck, where we did a live edit of people's personal statements. And workshop 3 is something that y'all can get involved in. It is an interview process where a pre-health student can gain volunteer hours by interviewing experts on social determinants of health, which is all of us in this room. And this is kind of my shameless self-promotion. If you're interested in becoming a mentor, you can register. I can show you the form. It's very quick and easy to fill out. Let's see if I could. Sorry, the Zoom is. I'll drop the link in the chat, but it's a Google form to sign up to be a mentor. You just need your name, email address, 1 sentence about your role in healthcare, and then clicking a box. So I'll drop this in the chat. If you guys are interested in signing up to be mentors, again, very little commitment. You will be kind of the initial spark in somebody's journey. And thank you all for coming out today, and thank you for giving us the chance to share about our journeys. And yeah, I guess I'll pass it off to the next presenter, if there's a next presenter.
Believe that is me. But before, well, one, I'm Uju. I'm a part of the Forest Law campaign team and a part of the SMA Health Justice Fellowship coordination program team. Thank you all to our fellows for sharing about your why, your work, and the lessons learned a part of this journey. Maybe we could just give everyone like a round of applause, like show some love, because they're doing this not just like this, but also school and all of the things that life throws at us. So it's really important, yeah, to show y'all some love. This is tremendous, amazing work. Yeah. All right, so I'm here actually to lead us into an audience Q&A. So you've heard all of the stories in the room. For audience members, if you have a question or comment, follow up to what you've heard thus far, you are welcome to share it in the chat and I'll read it out loud, or you can unmute yourself and ask one of the fellows.
Hey, this is Kayla. My question is, why are you so awesome? No, my question is, I'm curious um, if you could speak to like if you see any other opportunities like this fellowship around you, like are there other things that your peers are getting support from, or is this type of fellowship kind of unique? And if so, kind of like in what way?
I think I can answer this first. Um, so when we are healers, we only met quarterly, so 4 times out of the year, and it really wasn't a good experience. Get to meet my cohort members once every 3 months, but we meet for this fellowship bi-monthly, and we actually got to meet in person at the conference. So it really helped me build a sense of camaraderie with the group and a sense of belonging that I didn't feel with wheeler healers. So I really love that aspect. And if anyone wants to follow up on that, feel free to jump in.
I think, yeah, this is the only opportunity that I've experienced like this. But I think, I guess what makes it different from the other health justice initiatives I'm involved in locally is really like I mentioned, the scaffold that I had for organizing, the coaching, the mentorship, the ability to bounce ideas off my co-fellows, the folks in the Relate Lab, having people in SMA connect me to other experts or other folks who are doing work aligned with mine nationally. That was the huge benefit just because I think, I've gotten to know my local community really well, but I hadn't necessarily taken that jump to doing this organizing and this network building on a national scale. And so, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Oh, I just wanted to say to add on to that, like SMA is such a unique experience, and I think we're all very grateful to have participated. There are spaces outside of healthcare that I feel personally are similar, but not the same. I think the way I've come to think about it is SMA is full of people who want to create better and new ways and new systems of doing things. So just being around creatives, I know for me, like the Burning Man community is a lot like that. People who just want to create something new that's never existed before. And I love these spaces.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the chat. So I'll start with Haley Wu. Question is, once you all graduate and start practicing as clinicians, how do you plan on continuing health justice work?
For me, it's personal. So a couple of years ago, my older brother had got an infection that spread to his kidneys and his eyes. And in his healing journey, he's waiting for a kidney transplant, and he's losing the majority of his vision in his eyes. And he and I grew up playing video games, hunting, fishing together, and it won't be the same. But he's still my brother, and I still want to advocate for him. So we use Indian Health Services in the state of Oklahoma. And unfortunately, Indian Health Services didn't have enough funding for him to see the correct specialist. So when there was an opportunity to save his vision, we just couldn't afford it. And I see that in the tribal communities that I work with, all the health disparities and the generational trauma and the adverse childhood effects that are persistent on reservations. So it's going to be for me um, a never-ending challenge for me, something I'll keep advocating for. And then I also plan on applying for a DRPH program and advocating at the federal level for more funding for tribal communities. And I'm just very grateful for opportunities like the Social Mission Health Alliance Health Justice Fellowship for introducing me to such amazing people and growing as a human being. Um, so that's how I plan on using what I've learned so far and continuing health justice work.
I can speak next. Yeah, since I'm about to be a practicing clinician, I've been thinking a lot about this, especially in the throes of residency, which is, incredibly demanding. But I think for me, it was one choosing a program that was also mission aligned when it comes to health justice and working towards health equity. Um, and I'm so excited to learn the ways that I can do that, like within the clinical space because I've already, through SMA, through my other experience, I've learned how to do that like in the community, on a policy level, on a systems level. And yeah, I guess there's no separation for me when it comes to health justice work and my own clinical work. For example, if you can't tell, I'm a huge proponent of like deprivatizing the healthcare field. And so I have a huge commitment to working like in public hospitals or federally qualified health centers or nonprofit systems. And yeah, I'm going to continue working in the fight for single payer as well. I don't think that to lessen the moral injury I experience as being a health practitioner in this really harmful system. Um, I have to keep working towards health justice in the small ways that I can. And yeah, I'm excited to do that. If anyone is involved in single payer advocacy in Pennsylvania, let me know.
I think for me, like Kendall being part of the neurodivergent community, I've done a lot of shadowing. I'm not in anywhere near my clinical years, but I've done a lot of shadowing in clinics, specializing in the treatment for people with disabilities. And it's pretty, like the standard of care currently is pretty barbaric. It involves strapping people to poo boards, which basically like restraining people physically against their will. And just coming from an educational background, I know this like there's so many more paradigms we can draw from, rather than just doing what's standard of care now. So I really want to work to innovate. And people think I'm crazy. They think like this isn't going to happen, but I want to create my own specialty, and create new treatment paradigms. It's my spring break. I'm working on an appliance, for people with autism to help them breathe through their nose better. And so like I'm going in, like I've been working 24/7 on this for the past week, and I'm really excited about that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Thank you, Alisa, Miranda, and Kendall. All right, then we'll go to our next question, which is also in the chat, from Krista Brady, who asked or said, I'd love to hear reflections on the strengths of working in an interprofessional learning group.
I guess for me, I haven't really perceived that this is even an interprofessional group because we all have like this strong sense of justice, and I feel like we're more alike than we are dissimilar. I think the strength really comes from our different backgrounds. Like I've learned so much from Kendall about Native communities, and I've just learned so much about Miranda, how to like fight like systems of power. So it's really like not so much the fact that we're interprofessional, but the fact that we're just like a diverse group of people with diverse experiences and amazing strengths. And just so grateful again to have been a part of this cohort.
Yeah, just retweet everything Alisa just said because yeah, this health justice fight has to be interprofessional and I think a lot of the previous health justice spaces I've been in have tend to be like very physician centered, but then as Alisa just said that then thus we have like less diversity and experiences inherently, right? So no, I think it just gave such strength. I mean honestly, yeah, it was like anytime I came with like a problem about my campaign, it was like Alisa saying like, okay, like what if you sat on the ground like during the listening session and like let's see how that goes. And I was like, that's brilliant. Let me try it, and just getting to bounce ideas off folks with who I think that the strength of this fellowship is that the folks who are selected have already been engaged in health justice work. So as a result, there's so much expertise to draw on.
Something that I loved during the fellowship was the guest speakers that were all brought in. I remember there was one discussion we had about uh, private universities and funding and how they were sharing their resources with the community. And just, I work in higher education, and I have been for the past 7 years, but mostly for tribal colleges and an R2 university most recently. But we were looking at R1 universities like Johns Hopkins and its responsibility to the communities it's surrounded by. And I had my own ideas, but it was really interesting and great to hear that interprofessional lens from every single cohort member and Rob and the guest speaker because it gave me a brand new perspective on how to view work, social justice work. So it was really great to hear from the speakers that Rob brought in.
I'll also add my perspective as well and also drawing from my project. So I think that one of the biggest strengths is that it kind of fundamentally changes how I understand both the issue or the problem presented and also a possible solution. So I think a lot of times, especially in the healthcare profession, when you're trained in a single perspective or discipline, you kind of are taught to see different issues and different things through a specific lens. So if I'm a nursing student, I'm trained to think like more clinically and scientifically and focus on the actual patient care and outcomes. But like when talking to different people, like people working in the legal field, public health, social work, or policy, I've kind of started to see how incomplete my own perspective can be by itself. So, like my project with MLPs, I've learned so much about what presents as a clinical issue can be rooted in more legal or structural conditions. And having different professionals from different backgrounds and disciplines in the conversation actually changes like what interventions become possible and just really develop new ideas and new solutions. And I also think another strength is that a lot of the interprofessional work that we do and we have pushes us to communicate more differently, meaning like you have to translate what you know and what you see in a way where other people can understand and apply what you know and see as well. So it makes the work more like collaborative and less siloed and working by ourselves, if that makes sense. And I think that's like a beautiful thing to have, not just like working in healthcare, but other aspects of life as well.
All right. If there are no other comments, we can move towards closing. Thank you all so much. Thank you to the fellows. If for those who don't know, this is our last webinar for this academic year for the campaign. And to close it out with like hearing all the lessons learned and the ways you all have grown and supported each other over the past year just feels like such a delight. And we're all very excited to see where you go and what you do with what you've learned. You've heard us talk about the Forest Law campaign a couple of times. If you'd like to learn more, I will drop a link in the chat for you to do so. Additionally, if you are unfamiliar with the Social Mission Alliance, a good place to start is our Instagram page, where you can learn more about the ways different change agents like our fellows have been working within the health professional field to advocate for system change and revolution. So I'll add that here in the chat as well. And then if you love a good newsletter, we have two. We have a learner engagement newsletter where we share the latest and greatest about learner work, advocacy and work that's happening in the learner space. And then we have our Advocacy Insights newsletter where we share about broader health professional advocacy and policy work that's moving. And you can find those links in the chat here as I post them. And then one more link, because what is a webinar without several links? We would love to hear how this experience was for you. So if you could share feedback on this webinar, we would greatly appreciate it. And I will drop that chat or that link in the chat here. It really does help when we hear feedback from attendees. So thank you for taking a look at that. So thank you again. We'll close here, but not officially close because after we have our unstructured time to be with each other. I know currently it's being recorded. We will stay on for the next 30 minutes, or as long as folks are on the call to just have an unstructured kind of conversation. So you're welcome to join us. But again, if you have to leave, we're so grateful for you joining us today. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Please check out the links in the chat, and we will hopefully see you in another space very soon.